All right, let's take a look at everything that we are dealing with, all the little applications and programs in our demonstration. At the very top is Debian itself. So Debian is a Linux flavor. So a lot of people, when they take a look at a platform, they're like, well, what are you using? Are you using Microsoft Windows? Or are you using Linux? And it's a hard question to answer because when somebody says, hey, I'm using Microsoft Windows, you can probably already guess that they're using some maybe Windows 10 or Windows 11 pretty much, unless they're into legacy software in which you might presume they're using Windows 7 or Windows 8 or something, although Windows 8 is actually really hated out there. So when somebody says, I'm using Windows, they have an idea of what you're talking about. When it comes to Linux, Linux is a little bit like being asked, do you speak Chinese? Because quite frankly, there is no Chinese language. There are only dialects related to that southeastern region. So there's one example of a dialect is Mandarin. So when it comes to Linux, there is no Linux operating system. There are flavors of Linux, and that's what you have to say when you're talking about which operating system you use. The flavor or distribution, I should say, we're using is Debian. And the reason why I choose Debian is because there is a wonderful array of ARM64 versions or architectures of Debian, and there is a ARM64 version of Kali, and maybe Fedora, and maybe Ubuntu, but Debian is just a really, really great version that you can utilize on your Mac M1, M2, M3, or M4, MacBook or MacBook Air or something like that. And you can utilize VMware Fusion, or you can utilize an app called UTM. So I'm not going to go through the instructions about how to install Debian over UTM or VMware or VMware Fusion. It's just that, that's something you should know how to do as a skill set. So that's Debian. Moving on, we have NC. So that stands for Netcat. And actually, if we go to Debian right here and we do the man NC or Netcat, we can see that NC is what they call a TCP IP Swiss Army knife, and what it refers to is the fact that it's so utilitarian. Like, there's so many different utilities, and as you can see, NC actually stands for Netcat, and it's a simple Unix. So this one goes back a long way to the old Unix days. It's a simple Unix utility which reads and writes data across network connections. Now, when you think of network connections, you probably think of client server or something, at least another entity or PC or asset that is beyond your local PC, definitely, or especially beyond your local network. All right, but what we are doing, I'm going to press Q to get out of here. What we are doing, let me going back here. What we're doing is, let me grab my drawing tool right here. This is our single PC right here. So this is like our desktop, and I'm sorry, it's kind of like a 2-year-old made it. But what we're going to do, we're going to open up 2 terminals. So we're going to open up 2 command line interfaces on the same desktop. So imagine this is the same computer, okay? And here's your desktop. So we're opening 2 distinct, terminal sessions on the same computer, and then we're going to communicate as if we're on different computers, but we're on the same computer, and we're going to utilize NC or Netcat as a chat box. So I'm going to start this. This will be the listener, and this will be the client. And then the client will say something, and then the listener will say something back, and then the client will say something back. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use, let me bring out another color here. We're going to use Wireshark right here. We're going to use Wireshark to listen in onto the conversation. And the implication is that if Wireshark can listen to two, separate conversations, even though they're on the same computer, they're separate conversations. So if Wireshark can listen to two separate conversations on your computer, you by inference, it can also do the same if you're like at a coffee shop and somebody basically uses a program like Ettercap to do the man-in-the-middle attack, and somebody in some coffee shop could possibly see your information. So be careful when you're at a coffee shop. Don't go to like your financial institution or your bank or something, because yes, your bank is protected by HTTPS, which is basically a digital signature certificate, like it's encrypted, but the beginning of it, the initialization of the request might not be encrypted, and the client or the nefarious being that is eavesdropping on your request might figure out a way to decode your information based on the initialization algorithm of your request. That being said, let's go ahead and begin our demonstration. All right, we're about to do a demonstration here, but before I can complete my demonstration, I want to show you that I am virtualizing on my MacBook M3, and I'm using VMware Fusion, and this is, of course, as you can see, Debian. Now, in order for me to begin my demonstration, we have to install NetTools in order for me to take a look at what the IP address is with the command ifconfig, which is the kind of like the Windows version of it, which is ipconfig. So, of course, Linux and other Nix-like languages have ifconfig. Now, Debian does not come with that installed. That might be different with Kali. I'm sure with Kali it comes pre-installed, but with Debian you definitely have to install it separately. So how you install it is sudo apt. So sudo allows you to do root type things, even if you're not if your screen name isn't in the root, but it could be on the sudoers group, in which case this is. APT is Advanced Package Tool for many Linux distributions like Debian and also Ubuntu, things like that, and also Kali. And then, of course, the function of the APT is install, and then the name of the package is actually NetTools. Okay, so now the ifconfig command works, so we can say sudo ifconfig, and this gives us our IP address, as you can see. Okay, the next thing we have to do, we have to install Wireshark, which is a way to analyze packets on both our local network and analyze global packets. So we'll go ahead and install it, and then of course, let's see. Oh, let me raise this up. Do you want to continue? And obviously yes. So just have to give it some time for it to connect to its sources, and we want to say yes, super users should be able to. Okay, and so just to analyze the command, sudo allows us to do root things with a non-root user. Advanced packaging tool, and then install is one of the functions of APT, and then Wireshark represents the name of the program we want to install. And if we type in man Wireshark, it'll give us a description. It is a GUI network protocol analyzer. So as it says, it lets you interactively browse packet data from a live network or for a previously saved capture file. And so that is Wireshark. All right, let's take a look at how we can set up the demonstration. There is, as you can take a look at your diagram, there are two sides to this, and we can actually make two terminals. And if you want to go ahead and see how we can make an extra terminal, we can click on terminal and then just click on new window, and that allows us to bring up more than one terminal. Now on one side we have NC or netcat, and then we have space and then dash. So dash is kind of like telling it how you want the app to act, what you want it to do. So in this case, NC space, and then some people call it TAC L. I just call it a plain old dash. So NC space dash L, that that says this side is the listener. So according to the diagram, it shows this side being the listener, and this other side is the, I guess you could call it a client. So this side is the listener. So this is what the L is saying. And then we have space and then dash P that stands for port, and we can decide what port we want to use. We have ports 1 through right around 65,400 some ports, and of course I think there are more, but the reason why the 31,000 range it was selected is that because it's not a common port. Common ports are, for example, port 80 for HTTP, port 443 for HTTPS, and so on and so forth. There's ports for email exchange, there's ports for DHCP and such and things like that. So by the time you hit the 31,000s, you're in kind of like random port ranges. So 31,337 is safe. So I'm hoping that you're paying attention to this side of the screen right here. So again, we call NC or netcat, which means that's in Linux. That's how we execute an application. Is we actually type in the application. And then we say space and then dash L dash and then space and then dash P, which means the port number, and then we can press enter. So we've turned this side of the terminal into a listening port. This is the client port. So in order to get us to know what our IP address is, you saw how I ran ifconfig, and that's how we got the IP address 172.16.115.128. And then of course we're targeting port 31337. So these two ports should match. Now remember, we're on the same PC, except they're different terminal windows. So technically, they're going to be different streams. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Now, what this means is we're using Netcat to simply have a conversation between the same two terminals on the same between two different terminals on the same PC. So here I can say hi, and you can see on this end we have hi, and then we'll say how you doing like this, and then and this side says fine. Hey, guess what? We went bowling and Jerry got 290. And on this side, this other person might say Jerry or Jerry. And then we can say Jerry, the one with a mullet. Cool. And that's about it. Now, oh, you know what? I should have ran the other part of this demonstration. So I'm going to press Control Z to end this. And then I'm going to press clear and press clear for here. And this time I'm going to go ahead and run packet tracer, not packet tracer, Wireshark. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to continue without saving, and I'm going to X this out, and I'm going to go ahead and capture, and let's do this again with Wireshark in the background. So let's go ahead and capture on port 3137 as a listener, and this is running NC netcat on port 3137 as a client, and then I'm going to say hi. That's going to say hi, and then we'll say hello, how are you, and then finally this side will say Jerry bowled a 290. Let's give him some extra points, 295, and then we'll say Jerry or Jerry, and then Jerry with a mullet, and the other side says cool. Okay, and we'll go to here. We're going to end the capture, and we'll end these services on this side and the services on this side. Now let's go ahead to this capture. We're going to analyze, we're going to follow, and then we're going to follow the TCP stream. And lo and behold, even though this Wireshark was a separate program running on a separate stream, it was able to capture this in real time because this netcat sends things out in plain text. Now, the ramifications are such that if you're in a LAN and you establish Wireshark as a listener, listener and you're able to, run Ethereal or something to enable the man-in-the-middle attack, any application that is sent in plain text can be captured quite fruitfully by a program like Wireshark. And yes, that should very much scare everyone.